Thank you for joining us today for this Grandstream webinar. We have Abdel from Grandstream who's going to be hopping on here in just a second. He's going to talk to us about the UCM6000 series and the GXP phones and some of the bundle solutions that are available with that solution. And a little bit about us here at VoIP Supply. If you don't know us, some of you do hopefully, but VoIP Supply was founded in 2002. Got about 30 or so employees here at this time. 125,000 customers worldwide that we've serviced over the years. And we're out of Amherst, New York, which is just outside Buffalo. And of course, you'll see our phone number there, 1-800-398-VoIP. And you can call us anytime at that number. And we're always glad to help you out. A little bit about our partner program here at VoIP Supply. I wanted to just share this with you all before Abdel gets started. We have our VoIP rental program, which is something that is brand new to us here. We're just starting that out. We're calling it as our device as a service. It's a rental program where our resellers are tying all their hardware costs into a monthly bill for their customers and adding service into that, things like that. So the customer doesn't have to have that big outlay of cash. It can all be paid off over a monthly term, 3 or 4 years. The terms are flexible. We cut our teeth in hardware over the years. We've got about 60 manufacturers that we offer, thousands and thousands of products, and we've got experts here on our team in both sales and support and customer service and marketing. Everybody really has been here for quite a while, so our expertise is really top-notch in the industry. Another benefit that we can supply is our CloudSpan marketplace, where we have our customers shop various providers for VoIP service, whether it be hosted or SIP trunking, and we can help our customers find the best service provider for them. And within that program also, we have a reseller program where our resellers can earn monthly residuals on any service business that they bring in through VoIP Supply. We also work with several of the large service providers in the industry to do their fulfillment services, where we will provision and ship out phones for them direct to their customers, and they never have to touch those phones. So the easiest way to sign up, we have a very seamless process. We have a quick reseller agreement to sign up, and then we can get you educated on our different providers and vendors that we use, get up to speed on how their services work, and allow you to go out there and sell those to customers of yours. And like I said, then earn the commissions as your business grows. And there's really no minimums on that, whether you have a smaller business or you're a larger operation. We really have no minimums. So you can start earning commissions right away once you start bringing in some service business. Cash those commission checks quickly. So there's my ugly mug there on the screen. And again, my name is Joe Shanahan. You can email me anytime, jshanahan@voipsupply.com. You can see my direct phone number there on the screen as well. And I'll be glad to help you out with anything that you might need in regards to our partner program, any of our products, services, you name it. So I'm going to pass it off to Abdel here in a second. And just to remind everybody, you can ask questions throughout the webinar. And please use the Q&A feature in the webinar here, not the chat. If you could do it using the Q&A, that would be appreciated. But just send those questions off, and we'll get those over to Abdel to answer those at the end. So without any further ado, I will hand this over to Abdel and let you run with it from here, Abdel.
All right, thank you, John, and thanks everyone for joining us in today's webinar. So I'm just going to resume where I stopped from. Where basically that's the call park, which was the first feature that we started with. We talked about different ways how you can park the call. Let me just check the chat area. Oh yeah, that's better. All right, thank you guys for confirming. So we talked about the 3 ways how you can park the call. I mentioned about transferring the call to extension 700, which is the default one. you can always go to the web UI of the UCM and go to call park and change that extension to something different, as long as it does not conflict with any extension that is defined on the UCM. The second option that I talked about is the call park soft key that is available on the GXP phones. So this soft key usually shows up during an active call. If you want to have it displayed on your GXP phone, you need to log into the UCM and go to call features, then feature codes, and make sure that the feature code #72 is set to allow both. And the third way to park calls on the GXP phones is using the MPKs. So when you go to the GXP phone and you configure the MPK or the VMPK with call park mode, and then you specify the extensions, during an active call, you can just simply press the call park button, and the the GXP is going to send the request to the UCM to park the calls. So if you would like to use the MPKs with call park extensions, you also need to go to the UCM web UI, go to call park settings, and make sure that the setting that says use park lot as extension is checked. So this is a simple diagram that explains how call park works on the GXP phone and the UCM. So during an active call, you can just park the call using the three ways that I mentioned in the previous slide. So what happens, the GXP phone is going to send the request to the UCM to park the call. The call will be parked on the UCM. What's going to happen, all the phones monitoring the call park lots will have the MPK turned red, as you can see in that picture. So to retrieve the call, you can simply press the MPK that is red. That allows you to retrieve the call. If you have a phone that does not have the capability, for example, to monitor the call park extension, you can simply dial the park 1 extension, which in my case is 701. So you just need to go to any phone that is registered to the same UCM and dial 701 to retrieve the call. The UCM also has the feature that allows users to record calls on demand. You all know that the UCM can store the recordings on an external drive like a USB drive or an SD card, and then you can go to the storage, recording storage setting on the web UI on the UCM, then you can choose which storage you would like to use. The UCM also gives you the option that you can go, for example, if you go to the CDR, you're going to see the call, and then next to it, you're going to see a cassette icon. Once you click on that one, you will be able to play the recording from the web UI of the UCM. Another thing about call recording, which some of you might already know, is that you can enable auto recording at different levels. You can have it enabled for specific extensions, or you can enable it at the inbound route, or for ring groups, call queues, conference rooms, and IVRs, and many other different settings. The UCM also gives the users the option to record calls on demand. So instead of enabling auto record for all calls, the GXP phones display a record soft key button that a user can press during an active call to start recording when he or she feels the necessity to record the call. So by default, the calls are recorded on the UCM internal storage or a USB external drive or an SD external drive. The GXP phones also have the option to store recordings on the local IP phone using either the internal storage of the GXP phone, or you can use a USB flash drive that you can connect to the USB port on the GXP phone. So for the record soft key to show up on the phone, you will need to have the feature code for audio, mix, record set to allow from the web UI of the UCM. That feature is available under Core Features, Feature Codes. So what happens when you allow the record feature, the UCM will start sending a new header in the SIP invite message to the GXP phone whenever there is an incoming call. So once the GXP phone receives an invite message that includes the record header with the feature code *3 as displayed in the Wireshark capture, the GXP phone will automatically enable the display of the record soft key on the LCD screen of the phone. I have also included a Wireshark capture that represents what I just explained, and you can see the XUCM audio record *3 feature code included as a header in the SIP message. The next feature in our list is event list. For those of you who are familiar with the BLF, event list is pretty much the same thing, except that it has some benefits not available with the regular BLF. One of those benefits is bandwidth optimization. So with the plain BLF, the phone has to send a subscribe message for each configured BLF extension, which increases the number of subscription and notification packets on your network. So this is where event list becomes useful, in the sense that the phone, instead of sending multiple subscriptions, it's going to send only one subscription message that includes a list of monitored extensions, and the UCM collects the status information from the monitored extension and sends it out to the GXP phone in a single notify message. So, and another advantage also if eventless BLF is also the capability to monitor the status of remote extensions registered to a peered UCM. So in the example, for example, that we have in our slide, we have site A and site B, and you have like UCM A and UCM B peered together, and then you have the LDAP sync configured on both UCM. The UCM actually allows the GXP phones to monitor extensions on site B from site A. So if someone is busy from site B, you would actually see and monitor the status of that extension from site A. Without eventless BLF, you're not going to be able actually to monitor the status information of the remote extensions. Another advantage also of the eventless BLF is that when you go to the UCM and then you create an eventless URI and you include all the extensions, all you need to do is go to the phone, then include the eventless BLF URI, and then there is a feature on the GXP phones that is called Auto Provision Eventless BLF. So if you set that one to enabled, save and apply, just rebooting the phone, the UCM will automatically provision the GXP phone with all the BLF extensions in the event list. The UCM together with the GXP phones now support the SIP presence. The SIP presence is a feature available to phones with programmable keys, especially virtual multi-purpose keys that allows them to monitor the service status of a signed extension. Usually with BLF, we just monitor whether the extension is busy or available. But with presence, it gives us a lot of options. And some of these options is whether the extension is available, away, either on chat, either on DND, and available. You can also customize your presence status. For example, if you are the CEO and you have a meeting, simply by calling the presence feature code on the UCM, you can choose the custom presence so that all the users, they would see that you are already in a meeting. Moving on to the transfer modes available on the UCM. The UCM supports 3 modes of transfer. Blind transfer, which is commonly known. A calls B, B picks up the phone, answers A, then transfers the call to C, and then C starts talking to A. The second mode is attended transfer. Attended transfer is A calls B, then B puts A on hold, then initiates a call to C. So when C picks up, the B is going to just press transfer so that C can talk directly to A. On the GXP phones, they have that option. I mean, once you click on transfer and you start entering the number, the GXP is going to give you the option. Do you want to do blind transfer or attended transfer? So if you would like to have that feature on the GXP phones, you need to go to the phone web UI and then go to call features, settings, and then look for attended transfer mode and make sure you set it to dynamic. The third mode of transfer supported on the UCM and GXP phones is seamless transfer. Basically, it allows the user to perform a blind transfer using the UCM feature code *44 without having to put the transferee on hold during the transfer process. I mean, the way it works during an active call, you enter the feature code *44, which is the default one, and then followed by the number you want to transfer the call to. Also, you need to ensure that the feature code is actually checked on the UCM, as you can see it in the picture in the slide. Moving on to conference. The UCM has the capability to create multiple conference rooms that can be run simultaneously as long as it does not exceed the bridge and participant numbers limitation. And as you can see in the chart, the 6100, they support 3 bridges with 25 participants. The 6200, they support 6 conference bridges with 32 participants, while the 6500 supports 8 bridges with 64 participants. So the conference feature that we're going to be talking about today is called the CEI. This is a feature that is available on the UCM. So if you go to the UCM conference and next to create conference, there is an option right there that says enable CEI notify. So when you have that setting checked, what happens when your phone joins a conference, the UCM is going to send information, status information of the conference to the GXP phone. Then it's going to start displaying on your LCD screen. For example, in the screenshot that I attached, you can see that extension, for example, 1005 has joined. If another extension left, it's going to give you another message telling you extension, for example, 1006 has left. So this is a nice visual way to monitor the status of your conference or the activity of your conference room. Next, we talk about the call center. As you might know, the UCM starts supporting a lightweight call center feature starting like 2 or 3 firmware versions, like 6 months ago, probably, if I remember correctly. The lightweight call center actually included many enhancements compared to the call queue that we used to have before. So now you have the virtual queue, which allows users, when they call into the call queue, the UCM is going to play a prompt for them to give them the option so they can just simply press a code or press a star or press number 2 to allow them to leave a callback number. So whenever there is an agent available, the UCM is going to call that person that called the call queue, and then it's going to send the call to the available agent. There's also an enhancement in regards to call queue position announcements. Every time you call into the call queue, if you are the second in the call queue, the UCM is going to play the prompt, you are second in line. Now you also have the option to monitor the statistics and also a switchboard where you can monitor the activity going on in your call queue. You can actually log in agents, log them out just from the dashboard of the call queue. And the feature we're going to be talking today is called the UCM CC or UCM Call Center. So for this feature, as you can see on the LCD screen of the GXP phone, if you go to the UCM and under call queue settings, advanced settings, there's an option that says enable agent login. So once you have that one checked, and then you go to the web UI of the GXP phone, and there under special feature, you choose UCM call center. This setting is available under accounts. You choose the account that you're using, and it's under SIP advanced settings. So once you set that one to UCM call center, a new soft key will show up on the LCD screen of the GXP phone. So just by pressing the soft key, the GXP is going to show you all the call queues in which the extension is a member of, and then it gives you the option to choose which call queue you want to log in. So once you choose the call queue, it's going to give you the option you want to log in or you want to log out. This way, it makes it so easy to manage the login and logout of agents in the call queue without the need to remember the feature codes and the call queue extension number and all that stuff. So this feature just makes it way easier for agents to log in and log out. Just some information about the maximum agents in call queue. Because I've been asked a lot about this information, that's why I just put in the slides so people can have access to that information. So for the UCM, for example, 6202, you can have up to 18 agents in a call queue. For the 6500, you can go up to 120 static agents in all call queues. And next is the zero config. Zero config, by the way, works only with the Grandstream devices. It does not work with third-party devices. And the zero config works only with devices located in the same subnet as the UCM. For the first time when you get the UCM, usually the LAN port has a router mode and the WAN port has a DHCP client mode. My advice to you, if you want to deploy the devices on the WAN, the WAN port, make sure you change the mode of the UCM to switch instead of route mode. Because if you have it in route mode, the UCM will not be able to detect devices on the WAN port. So make sure you switch it to switch mode. This way the UCM will detect all devices either on the LAN port or the WAN port. The UCM has a very nice feature. I mean, this is how it works with the GXP phones. All the Grandstream phones, when they reboot, they send the subscribe message during the boot up process. And the subscribe message is sent to a multicast IP address. The UCM is always listening on that IP address. So every time it receives a subscribe, it's going to check the MAC address. If it sees that the MAC address belongs to a Grandstream device, it's going to add it to the list. It's going to check if there is a configuration already for that device. If there is a configuration available, then the UCM is going to send the URL to the phone so that the phone can use that URL to request the config file. I mentioned how SIP subscribe works. There's also the option 66 on the GXP phones. For example, if you have your router in your network and you have a DHCP server, you can configure the DHCP server with option 66 so that when all the phones they reboot, they get an IP address, the DHCP server is going to push option 66 to the phones to tell them where to go and look for the config server path. So the UCM, as you know, is enabled by default on the zero config is enabled by default on the UCM, and it has some other features. And one of those features is called enable PIC extension. So when you go to the UCM and you check that setting that says enable PIC extension, then you go to your phone, the GXP phone, and you click on settings and you scroll down. There's an option that says UCM detect. So once you click on UCM detect, it's going to give you the IP address of the UCM. Once you click select, then the UCM is going to give you an extension that you can use for an explicitly defined period of time that you can configure, and their peak extension period in hours. Another information about zero config discovery: the UCM can discover all the broadcast domain. You can just include the 255 at the end of the network IP address, or you can include the specific IP address of a specific device, and then the UCM will discover that device using three methods: either sending a ping message using the ICMP protocol, or using an ARP message, or SIP info message. So once it sends that information, if there's a device that responds back, the UCM is always going to check the MAC address, because zero config on the UCM works based on layer 2 addressing. If it detects that it is a Grandstream device, it's going to populate it under the discovered devices in the zero config page. From zero config, you can also remotely reboot the devices, and this applies to all the Grandstream devices. You can just simply detect the device, add it to zero config, and then you can provision it. You can delete that device. You can also reboot it just using the web UI of the zero config from the using the zero config from the UCM web UI. For those of you who are familiar with configuring templates on the zero config, you might already know that there is a hierarchical design on the zero config templates. So, for example, if you have the same setting configured at the device configuration, at the model template and global template, one of them has to override the other one. So zero config, it was built with this hierarchy. From bottom to top, the bottom one has the higher priority. So for example, device configuration has the highest priority compared to model template, which has a higher priority than global template, which also has a higher priority than global policy. So whatever you configure, the device configuration is going to override the other templates. And I think that's it for this presentation today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A area, and Joe will help ask the questions so we can provide you with the needed answers.
Okay, yes, we do have a couple of questions here. Let's see, the first one, actually it's a question about configuring Avaya phones. Can Avaya phones be configured to work with the UCM?
I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, all our devices are SIP-based devices. So any device that supports the SIP protocol should work with the UCM. Of course, some features, they might not work, because some of the features that I talked about today, they were designed to work only with the Grandstream devices. But in terms of functionality, any phone that is SIP-based should work with the UCM with no problems.
Okay. Another question is, if someone would like to communicate some ideas to Grandstream, or discuss new ideas, where should they take those within Grandstream? Who would be a point of contact, or where should they try to get a hold of you?
I mean, there are many ways how you can do it. I mean, some of our resellers or customers, they're already in contact with the sales rep, which they can communicate their suggestions. If you don't know anyone from Grandstream, you can simply go to the help desk from the Grandstream website, and then you can open a ticket and you can include all your suggestions. If you would like to discuss them with a specific person, you can just request that from the help desk ticket, so that someone can get back to you either through the ticketing system, or someone can give you a call to discuss those suggestions with you.
Okay. Let's see, a question about any kind of more advanced trainings. Are there advanced trainings like in different regions throughout the US?
Yeah, absolutely. Every now and then we do some trainings in North America. It depends on your region. So the way we do trainings, so you become aware of it, is that you need to get in touch with your distributor. We usually provide the trainings, but they are always held and managed by the distributors. So you need to contact your distributors to get information about the next available advanced training.
Okay. All right. Another question here is about Active Directory, or any other kind of directory clients on the UCM.
I bet he's talking about the LDAP settings. I mean, if that's the case, yes, you can actually use the LDAP, the Active Directory LDAP service on either the UCM or directly on the GXP phones. This is an available option. So when you go to the LDAP settings on the UCM, you're going to see the configuration of the UCM as an LDAP client. That's where you need to include the information about your Active Directory LDAP service.
Okay. Here's one internationally. Any trainings in South Africa that you know of?
I'm not aware about that one, honestly, because here I manage North America. So for that specific customer, they can reach out through help desk. They just need to select the region, which is, I believe, EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa. Just select that region when you open a ticketing system so that your tickets can be studied or investigated by an engineer who is located in your region, so they can get back to you with the exact information.
Okay. Another question here that's coming up. How do we set up Affinity desktop client? Affinity desktop client?
Affinity, there is actually a guide on the Grandstream website. You need to go to the Grandstream website. You need to download, of course, the application on your computer so you can run it from your computer. And then there are instructions on how to, because there are some settings that you also need to enable on the GXP phone that you're going to be using together with the GS Affinity. If you go to the website and then you select the GXP product, there is a how-to guide that explains to you in details how you configure GS Affinity with the GXP phone.
Okay, looks like one last question here. So on the 6510, there is a USB and an SD port. Do any of the other lower models also have that USB or SD ports for additional storage or things like that?
Yeah, that is correct. All the UCM models, they come with an SD, a port for an SD card and also a USB port that you can use with the USB drive. Just some specifications that you might take into consideration when using the external storage. Either a small model like 61, 62, or 65, if you're using SD card, just ensure you do not exceed 64 gigabytes. For USB drive, if it's more than 700 or 1 terabyte, make sure that the USB drive has its own source of power, because the USB port of the UCM does not provide enough power for large USB storage devices.
All right. Here's another question here. This one's about a GXW 4108 and asking if that would support BLF.
The GXW 4100, that's like an ATA. It's like an analog telephone adapter. So I'm not sure how you want to use it with the BLF. BLF is basically a SIP device, like an IP PBX. Just give you additional information about the GXW 4100. We use that device just in case you have, for example, analog lines like POTS lines, and you want to convert them to SIP traffic so that your IP PBX can process them. That's when you use the GXW 4100.
Okay. Another one here. can I have two UCM6204s configured in the same location for failover automatically?
I'll explain to you. Right now, we only have a high availability device that we call HA100. This device works only with 6500. So in case you have two 6500s, you only need to configure the master and then connect them to the HA device, HA100 device, and then the HA100 device is going to take over of the failover, which means if device A goes down, it's going to switch all the configuration back up automatically in a matter of seconds to UCM B. But for the model that you mentioned, 6204 and 6208, that is not supported right now. Probably in the future, we're going to come up with another HA device that might work with the smaller model, but right now we don't have it. So that works only with 6500.
Okay, and just looks like one last one here. Actually, a couple more international questions. So if they're looking for an international distributor, those can those be found on the website? Or where do they find if they're international? Where would they find their distributor?
I mean, again, that depends on your region. If you are in a different region than North America, you just need to open a ticket from the Grandstream help desk. Just include information about your country, your area, your phone, your email. So once you open a ticket, the engineer who's going to receive your ticket is going to send it to the appropriate sales rep so they can get back to you with information about resellers and distributors in your area.
All right, UCM62 on the cloud. Are there any cloud versions of UCM?
Not now. Right now, all the UCM models that we have, they are like IP PBX appliances, nothing in the cloud yet.
Okay, all right. I think that that looks to be about it. Anything else, Abdel, that you would need to add?
I believe we covered most of the things, unless participants have other questions. I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Folks, thanks for joining us today. Again, if you do have any further questions that come up after this, and we will be sending out copies of the webinar to everyone so that you do have it. And if other questions do come up, please feel free to email them to me here. Joe, actually, you can just use jshanahan@voipsupply.com. You can also use joe@voipsupply.com. Either one of those will come to me. And definitely appreciate you all joining us today, and look forward to hearing from you down the road. Hope everybody has a great day.